Good morning and welcome to Maranatha Baptist Church. Glad you could join us for Sunday school in the middle of August, late August here in north central Ohio. We're glad you're here. This morning we are going to be changing gears for those of you joining us from home. We're going to transition from covenants or promises. We've basically covered the great majority of them previously, and so we wrapped that up last week. We're moving on to friendships or partnerships, if you will. And so we're going to begin this morning in Exodus chapter 17 and working our way kind of systematically through various friendships, partnerships that these authors have put for us. Obviously, there's only 6 lessons, I believe. There's obviously more than 6 partnerships, friendships in the Bible that are worth studying, but they, for whatever reasons, have selected these 6. But before we begin, I'm going to start out by asking a question. What makes a good friend? And I think this is very timely that we're studying friendships. The latest survey to come out, and I cannot remember who did this survey, 25% of 25-year-old men have no male friend at all. No significant male friend at all. That's huge. Can you imagine 25% of men, 25 years-ish, have no significant male friend in their life? That's staggering. So, in lieu of that, what makes a good friend? Loyalty. To what?
For one, a good friend for me would be somebody who's loyal to me.
In what way? And I'm only pushing this because I think you're on the right track, but I want to make sure we go.
Somebody who doesn't talk behind your back.
Okay, so somebody who doesn't talk behind your back. So let's stay with the loyalty avenue. So someone who doesn't talk behind your back. What's the other end of not talking behind your back? What's the flip side to that? Okay, lift you up.
I mean, instead of talking bad about you, they talk good.
Okay, so talking bad about you, they talk good.
I was going to say before that, they're supportive.
Supportive. Okay.
Even when you do something wrong.
Yeah.
There's a good friend isn't going to, you make a mistake and you say, man, I really messed up. Maybe you messed up big time, but they're not going to turn their back on you.
Yeah.
They're willing to forgive.
Yeah.
They follow the bro code.
Follow the bro code. So what is God's bro code?
He is faithful and just
Okay, he's faithful and just
to forgive us our sins.
to forgive us our sins, but he's also faithful and just to do what? Tell us we're screwing up. Yeah. The flip side of not talking behind my back is talking to my face.
Yes.
And a good friend is, and so maybe I should have prefaced it this way. What is a good Christian friend, and why do I need one?
Somebody who'll call you out when you're wrong.
Somebody who's going to call you out when you're wrong, but not forsake you, not go talk behind your back, not put it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever other social media is out there, not come to church and blab it all over the place, but is willing to talk to your face, tell you what you're doing wrong, willing to help you when you're doing wrong to get where you need to be and make sacrifices that way, challenge you in your walk with the Lord, not just tell you where you're wrong. Hey, listen, why don't you and I do this? And this being, do this for the Lord. What I find in many male friendships, they obviously revolve around what? Any friendship, but specifically men, they normally revolve around what?
A lot of times common interest.
Common interest. Absolutely. And I find a lot of Christian men have friend Christian men who happen to be Christian, but the main thing that they revolve around isn't necessarily God, it's the thing they have in common. And how do you know that? Because what you talk about is coming from where? Coming from your heart, okay? I'm not going to talk about beekeeping to too many people, though I like it. I don't know anything about it. So I could become friends with somebody who could mentor me in that because we have that in common. But I'm not going to talk about it too much because I don't know what to say or anything regarding that. Most men have a friendship with somebody they have something in common about, but often the emphasis of the relationship is not Christ. The emphasis of the relationship is the thing they have in common. How do you know that? Because the thing they're most talking about is the thing they have in common as far as a hobby or an interest. What they're not talking about on a regular basis is God. And that's just the observation, and that's just what you see normally no matter where you go. You see men who have interest around other men who have interest, but the predominant thing isn't God per se. I'm not saying it's never God, but it's not the predominant thing. And what the Bible's going to challenge us with is not only should we emphasize those things we have in common, hobby-wise or physically wise, but spiritually wise, we should have that. Has anybody else made any similar observations, or are you saying, Pastor Grover, you're full of smoke? That's not it.
You know, you're probably pretty on track. When you first said it, I thought of a coworker who once told me, well, I'm having a get-together for 30 of my closest friends. I don't have 30 friends. You know what I mean? A statement like that is, well, you and I aren't defining friendship exactly the same here. And you know, there's a wonderful Christian man that I carpool with who is absolutely into high school, college sports, follows the tribe, whatever they are now, the Guardians. How much interest do I have in any of that stuff? That's his life.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't talk about carpooling. That's our common interest. And we do end up talking about the Lord quite a bit. And we got a half hour to and from. And it's not all day, all day, the whole trip, but it is refreshing. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
That is what puts us together in that car every day for an hour is nothing to do with what we end up talking about. But the one common interest we do have, he doesn't hunt, he doesn't fish, he doesn't do things that woodworking like I enjoy doing. But yeah, the one common interest we do have that we talk about. And I'm glad that and I guess we're both cheap too because we're carpooling. But we don't talk about being cheap. But so that is an oddity though. In general, I would agree with your statement.
Yeah. And I agree with your statement. I don't have 30 friends, probably 30 close friends, no way. Maybe 2 or 3. And 2 or 3 mean, in my case, there are going to be all pastors because that's the thing we have in common. We're pastors. And I think it was Brother Mark Abel said in Daniel's ordination, nobody will understand. And he put that chair up there. Remember that? And he said, that's your chair. You guys remember that? And he said, nobody knows what it's like to sit in that chair until they sit in that chair. And they're absolutely right. And so that's why I would say I wouldn't suggest it. I know my closest 3 or 4 friends are pastors because they've sat in that chair and we have that thing in common. And it happens to be, the common thing happens to be Christ. And so that's normally no matter where, and we all have other interests, but the interest we all have and the main thing is Christ. And that's what we usually end up talking about. So what we're looking at then is developing that. And I think every man should be putting forth a good effort to be with another man, not just around the hobbies they have in common, which they should have hobbies in common. And there's nothing wrong with going to the shooting range or the golf range or the ball game or the woodworking shop, or there's nothing wrong with that. As long as I understand the most important thing I can do for my friend and the most important thing he can do for me is be with me spiritually, backing me up, encouraging me, confronting me, challenging us to further our walk with God, and especially in making disciples. Because that is the thing we're charged with, right? That is the thing. We are charged with making disciples. And so I need a friend because all of us have strengths and weaknesses. All of us have good days and bad days and enthusiasm and no enthusiasm. That's the time I need somebody. When I can do everything on my own, I really don't need anybody, but that's not all the time. I struggle at times. I need somebody there when I'm not doing things or when I'm struggling with things to get me through that. That's what I think is sometimes missing. And here's the other thing missing, I think. When is the last time one of your Christian friends challenged you spiritually? I mean, hey, how about you and I go over to somewhere and help this missionary do this? Or how about we do that for somebody, some spiritual goal, just challenged you because he wanted to take the next step, and he knew you had to take the next step, and together you said, let's take the next step. Let's go challenge ourselves to take this step. Whatever let's love our wives better. Let's love our children better. Let's love the community better. Let's take this next step and put the challenge right in front of you. That's what we're looking at. And a good Christian friend, including you, can go to your other friend and say, you know what? God's really laid it upon my heart. How about you and I do this? How about you and I, you pick out a missionary from your church, I'll pick out a missionary from our church. Hey, do you have a missionary in the United States? We have a missionary in the United States. How about we pray that we take some time next summer with either you and I together or our families together, our wives, and let's go there and let's be an encouragement to those missionaries. Let's go do this. Tell them, hey, listen, we're going to spend a week. Whatever you want done, we're going to do it. And take the next challenge. Or let's pray that hey, at work, let's see if we can have, because normally at most work, when it's your free time, you can do whatever you want. For example, lunch. If I want to take out my Bible, I can take it out at lunchtime. And if anybody wants to join me, my work can't stop me. What I can't do is when I'm on the clock, pull my Bible out. I can pull it out and start reading it if I have nothing else to do, but I cannot make somebody else do it or listen to it, and I can't do it even on lunchtime, but I'm freer for all of us to do it at that specific time. And there have been, both hospitals that I've worked at, there have been people before work have had Bible studies. You're free to do it. So that's what I'm talking about, challenging me to be a better follower of Jesus Christ. That's a true friend. And all those other things, the bro code, that's all there too. But as we're going to find out this morning, and we all know this as well, if I'm following Christ the way I'm supposed to do, I'm not going to do any of those things that are going to violate our friendship. I'm not. So let's take a look at some helpers, some people, some friends. And we may call these, they more look like partnerships, but they're men. Today it's going to be men helping men. So in Exodus 17, so what do we know when I turn to Exodus 17? In my mind, I have to pull up what I know. What do I think is going on in Exodus 17? What has happened by the time I get to Exodus 17? They're in the wilderness. They came from Egypt. They're in the wilderness. They haven't received the 10 Commandments yet. Are these individuals fighters? Did the Israelites know how to fight? Have they ever, when's the last time they were in a confrontation?
That would be like Abraham was alive, right?
Long, hundreds of years. So I'm just trying to pull up context. Are these guys warriors? Shouldn't say fighters. Are these Israelites warriors? Not yet. They haven't been in a battle. There's no organization. They don't have generals, colonels, sergeants, privates, lieutenants. They don't have any organization. And so that's what's going on. And they come into the wilderness, and not everybody, just like today, not everybody's glad to see the Israelites, especially in their land or what they believe is their land. So this is where we pick it up. Then came Amalek, verse number 8, and fought with Israel and Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out and do battle with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. All right, so who do we have as characters here? Who's our players here? Moses and Joshua. Okay, what's going to happen? What's the relationship between Moses and Joshua? What are the job assignments?
Moses is the leader.
Moses is the leader. Okay.
And he commands Joshua to take men to go fight.
Okay, Joshua. So we got our job assignments. They're different, but yet the same in the sense that they're all doing it for the same purpose. All right, it's for the Israelites' survival. One's leading, and he's told the other one to go do what? Go fight. Now, is Joshua, we don't know, but we can highly suspect, was he trained in combat? No, he's not trained in combat. But whatever Moses saw in Joshua, Joshua apparently had some type of what skills? Some type of leadership skills. All right? So friends can look at other friends or other people and can tell their what about them? Strengths. Have you ever considered doing this? I think you have the ability to do this. Okay? So Moses and Joshua, and then we have some other people. They're not the only two in this story. Aaron and Hur.
Would that be Ben?
Ben is just short for son of. Like tonight we're going to lead. Yeah, like tonight we're going to learn Ezekiel's called Son of Man. That in Hebrew is Ben Adam. Adam is human being. He's saying, you son of a human. Ben is son of. All right, so we've got these people. We've got 4 people in this story. There's more, obviously, right? There's more than that, but 4 main people in this story. What is going to be their relationship one to the other? So far, one has called the shots and told one he's to go get and prepare for this battle, who's never done anything like this before in his life, but apparently has some skills. And the thing is, what does Joshua do? He goes and does it. So I can have partnerships, I can have friendships in which somebody can look at me and say, hey, listen, You have a skill set. And to be more spiritual, you have a gift. And I want you to exercise, I want you to consider, we would say it this way, we never tell anybody go do it. We would say, I would make a strong suggestion to you that you do this. All right, let's keep reading. So Exodus 17, verse 11. And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. So what's going on here? What do you think this hands up, hands down stuff has to do?
Moses is channeling God's strength and giving it to Joshua.
Okay?
At least that's what it was when he parted the Red Sea.
Yeah. I believe that word heavy, if I'm recalling this right, I should have looked this up prior to right now. I think that word heavy, one of the words in here is the word Aman. Do you remember, was it last week in the morning service I covered Aman? Do you remember, what does Aman in Hebrew sound like? And what's amen mean? Truthful. When his hands were up, they were winning. When they were up, they were truthful. When they held him up, he was truthful. When they came down, what's the opposite of untruthful or trusting? Whatever that opposite is, that's the word. So it wasn't when he was truthful, they what? They won. When they were untruthful, they were losing. Do you think God's trying to tell us something in that story? Do you think there's an object lesson by using those words? Do you think there's an object lesson in there? When you're truthful, you're going to do what? You're going to win. When you're not truthful, or we use the word trusting. And I mentioned this last week. The reason they think Jesus said mammon is because over time, money became something you trusted in. All right? Am I trusting in God that I'm going to win? If I'm not trusting in God, I can't expect to win. And so, if that's the case, then what did Aaron and Hur do? They held him up. Moses, stay what? Stay truthful. That's that picture right there. Do I have friends that are willing to get under my arms and lift them up so that I will stay what? Truthful. Truthful to who? To God. That's a friend. If I have somebody who cares enough about, number one, they're going to have to care about me. Why would I say that? They're going to have to care about me.
You know what the easiest thing to do is?
What's that?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it's many times in human nature to take the easiest way out. So if someone is willing to talk to you about something like that, it should although it doesn't often come across that way. If you ever had a really difficult conversation with another Christian, like, look, you're doing this and you need to reevaluate. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy thing to do
No.
at all. Was it received well?
Yeah.
I've had it go both ways.
And normally, yeah, you can go both ways. What is the key thing that Jesus told us on the Sermon on the Mount to make sure you've done before you go do that?
Is that if you got something between you and your brother?
Well, yeah, it's in chapter 7. If before you go out and pull the speck out of your brother's eye, take the beam out of yours. All right? And so normally, if you've self-examined yourself and have made sure you've gotten taken care of your issues, then you're probably in a good position to go and help your brother with his issues. In an epistle, it says, you that are spiritual, if you see somebody sin, the spiritual people go talk to the person who's sinning. All right? So I've taken care of me. Normally, what will happen if I have to go confront a brother who's erring is if I'm in big time error myself, that opens it up for this conversation to go south because he or she can just say, you're a big hypocrite. So we want to make sure I'm not a hypocrite. And it can go south, especially if the person, when it goes south, what does it usually mean that person's full of?
Oh, there's hate going on.
Or pride.
Yeah, well, and I should clarify. I really had it go south on me one time. It was bad. And there was an apology 3 days later.
Okay.
And the person admitted that they needed to change what they were doing.
Okay.
What they were doing was wrong. But in the moment, man, did I walk away thinking, I blew that big time, That was 3 days of reevaluating. I should have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah.
In the end, it was received better than I thought.
Fantastic. I'm glad you shared that example and how God times everything. So tonight, when we look at Ezekiel has a horrific message to tell the Israelites. At the beginning, in the end, chapter 34, the tone of the message is going to change. But at the beginning, it's horrific. And God says this, I have made your face like stone. Why, God? Because they're not going to want to hear what you have to say, and they're going to come after you. So why did he make his face like stone? Well, if I have a stone face and you're hurling insults at me, what's going to happen? Nothing. And Ezekiel, at the end of chapter 3, some portion in it, or end of chapter 2, I think, he goes and he sits down for 7 days and thinks about this. So what you're feeling, what happened to you, Bob, was real. You sat down, that guy threw stones at your face, I'm assuming, some verbal stones. Oh yeah, verbal stones. They hit you, and just like Ezekiel, you went and sat down and said, I need to think about this. What just happened? And do I ever want to do that again? And the normal human response would be, not really. We are pain avoiders, period. We do not like pain, whether it be physical, emotional, any other type. We are pain avoiders, and we will do anything to get out of it. And so God had to work in Ezekiel, and God has to work in us. We don't feel good about making people feel bad, but in 3 days, that person saw the light and changed. And now how do you feel about it?
Oh, much better.
Much better.
And I have had conversations with others
Well, you learn from it.
No, for sure.
All right. So this is Moses' hands. This is the story when remain to the truth and truthful and trusting in God, we're going to win. But when we aren't trustful and truthful, we can expect victory. And how precious it is if I have somebody who's going to come along and want to lift my hands up. That at first it can seem what? If somebody came to you and said, hey, I think you're struggling. Here, let me lift your hands up. Initially, that can seem like what? Who are you, bud? Who are you? And then if you're truthful with yourself, you'll say, thank God somebody cared enough for me. So that was the original question. How do I know somebody cares? Because they're paying attention to me. When you see a family where the kids are running hog wild and mom and dad are over there doing something and their kids are falling into the fire, jumping off houses, driving cars when they're 5, and they're not the least bit interested, we say, don't you what about your kids? Don't you care? And the answer that they're giving to us is, no, we don't. Because if I cared, I'd be paying attention to them. So if there's a brother that I have that has enough umption to come to me and say, listen, you're messing up, or you're doing great, or can I help you with this? They're telling me they care about me. Why? Because they're paying attention to me. And that's why churches that get astronomical in size better have the staff to handle them, because how can you be caring for everybody if you don't even know half the people's names? And there's one pastor in town, probably the fastest growing church in Ashland County, and I love his attitude. He went to a conference, and one of the sessions was on how to grow your church. And he said, I'm not interested in growing my church. I'm interested in keeping my church healthy. Teach me how to keep my church healthy. It's growing astronomically. That's the right attitude. When I can't state all their names, then we need to stop, or I need to enhance my staff. That's exactly right. That's the right attitude. Because you're supposed to care for them. How can you care for them if you don't even know them? And that's what happens in a lot of bigger churches. People go there, good music, good preaching, or average preaching, but I can sit in that pew and nobody's going to what? Say anything to me. I don't like being confronted. I know I'm not perfect, but I don't want you telling me I'm not. I don't want to be accountable. I want to live my life the way I see Christianity. And I don't want you challenging me. So, and I can honestly say, I go to church, I'll let God speak to me occasionally, but I don't want anybody paying attention to me. It's a good place to hide. And so when a staff, if you have 35,000 people in your church, something's wrong. There's no way you're paying attention to 35,000 people. All right. But Moses' hands, so anything on that particular passage?
Is that the first time, I take it, that these Joshua, Aaron's been mentioned before, but it's the first time Joshua was mentioned, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
He just pops on the scene. Where he's been, what he's been doing, no idea. Apparently hanging out in Moses' eyesight is all I can suspect, because Moses goes, or God told Moses, and it's just not recorded about Joshua. But and we know he has these qualities because he's the next what? He's the next leader. So either God told him or Moses had good insights. And Aaron and Hur are no little characters either. All right, keep going. Exodus 24:13. And Moses rose up and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God, and he said unto the elders, tarry ye here for us until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud and a cloud covered the mount. So two of those guys, Aaron and Hur, stay at the base of the mountain. Joshua goes up some distance in the mountain. We don't know how far he went up. He didn't go all the way up because the Bible says only who went up to the top of the mountain and the cloud covered him. Moses. So Joshua is somewhere in the what? Somewhere in between. So what's happening up on the mountain? So do you remember last Sunday night, my silly drawings? Everybody remember that? Remember that? One was a topography and the other one was this way. And this way had the water underneath, then the earth, and then on top of the earth was the tree, and then on top of the circle was a what? Throne. And what was the understanding of that? The further up I went, and the further down I went. Okay. Where's Joshua? Okay. If that's how they understood things, when he's looking up, what should he see? God. And if he's looking down, what should he see? Godly or doing ungodly? All right. So when he looks up, what does he see? He sees God, the cloud, and when he looks down, what does he see? What are the people doing while Moses is up there on that mountain? Getting further and further away from God. And that's where we find ourselves. We're not at the top yet, are we? Metaphorically speaking. We're not with God. But every day we get to look up, and every day we get to look down. Because we're somewhere on that journey, right? God pulled us out of the pit, and we're climbing up towards him, but we're not there yet. We're somewhere in between. And every day we have choices to go down or to go up. What I would appreciate, because I stumble here and there, is to have a friend, and all our spouses are that as well, but especially a male friend who would have the courage to come to me and challenge me to always keep my head looking which direction? Up. And the ones who go up get closer, and the ones who stay down get further away. And that's exactly what happens in this story. And I need friends. I need a pastor who will look me square in the eyes and say, you're going down, or you're going up. The steps you are taking have been awesome. What a step of faith you've made in taking your family, taking your marriage, taking your personal walk with God. But irregardless, not be afraid to tell me both. So this is what Moses does. what's the good thing about Moses? What's his role in these friendships? Okay, we talked about the bro code, all right? Couple of pages flipping to our right, around Exodus 35, God is giving them, Moses, these 10 commandments. He's been up there 40 days and 40 nights, has not eaten. He's going to go down. These people have made this calf, and Moses goes down, sees it, breaks those commandments, goes back up that mountain, and God says to him, Moses, stand back. I'm going to what? I'm going to wipe them out. Okay, bro code. What's Moses do?
Intercessor.
Don't. Please don't. Please don't do that. That's leadership. That's a brother. God had every right to do it. He's not forsaking him, is he? He's staying right there. And he says, if you're going to not take them, then do what to me? Get rid of me. If you're not taking all of us, don't take me. That's loyalty. And isn't that what we were saying in friendships? Loyalty? I mean, a loyal friend is when he has every right to abandon me, but what? Stands by me. That's a friend. And that's what I think this lesson is trying to teach us. All right? So a good friend, we have things in common, but the thing I want us to have most in common and center some portion of our conversation and goals and talking around God, because that's the thing. I want somebody who's going to hold my hands up, that I would be trusting in God and truthful to him. And when he sees my hands coming down, would be willing to come over and tell me about that and help me lift them back up. And if my hands were to fall completely, wouldn't abandon me, but would go to God and intercede for me, that God would be merciful to me and get my hands back up. And challenge me like Moses challenged Joshua. Joshua had never done this stuff before. He had how many days, months, and years to prepare? He had hours. And by the time morning comes, he's got a what? He's got an army. How he did it, have no idea. But he's got an army. He's ready to roll. Do you think that was a challenge for him? So a good friend can go challenge another good friend beyond even what that friend thinks they're capable of. Somebody saw something in Joshua. And so a good friend would say, I don't know, hey, Bob, I don't know what you think you're capable of doing, but let me tell you, I've watched you do this for years now or months. Do you know you're capable of doing this? And it may cause you some sacrifice, yeah. But you're capable of doing this. So a lot going into, and being able, same with you, being able to watch a friend, especially younger people who aren't sure of their gifts and abilities. Hey, you young guy, do you know you have this? And not just this to go make a living, this to go serve the Lord. Do you realize you have the capacity? God could really use somebody like you. maybe not in full-time service, maybe not as a missionary. Have you ever thought of being this? That's a friend. All right. Any other comments? All right, Bob Giegel, could you close our time with a word of prayer?